the Kauffman Foundation 1 Million Cups. It's happening all throughout the country. I don't know if it's Wednesdays every Wednesday, every location, but we're here every Wednesday, 9 o'clock. It's every Wednesday, every location. So great coffee. We want to thank Daytona Cinematique for allowing us to use this venue where we get to, this is a killer venue. And I looked at some of the other locations and I'm like, I like our little location right here. It's nice and cozy. But there are events that go on here all throughout the month. Jed, he's our manager there. And just share that information. Usually there's calendars on the desk that talk about what's going on throughout the month. Also want to thank Volusia Economic Development as they fund us. So we get a lot for entrepreneurs throughout the community, so certainly check that out. Today we have a special guest. We have Jeff and Laura, and they are going to share with you their idea of Beef for the Children. So let's welcome them.
All right, let's see which microphone I have. I see.
You have the close one.
All right, deal. Hi, my name is Laura Murphy, and we're here to share a little bit about our story and how we got down to Daytona Beach. So I'm going to start a little bit about ourselves, and then we'll migrate that into our business concept. So, as I said, Laura, this is my husband Jeff. We're stuck up in a very small town in Homer, Alaska. I lived there for 22 years, and Jeff was
Born there.
Yep. And so when our youngest graduated from high school, we hopped in our motorhome and drove around the country for 3 months looking for where we wanted to live. We stopped in Florida for just a couple weeks, and then we started traveling around Florida and finding where we wanted to live, and Daytona sung to us. So we landed in Daytona.
Yeah.
We're very happy. This is our second summer. We just celebrated our first year in our home on Beachside, on International in the Main Street Development District. And we also own a little fourplex over there, so we're very committed to watching Daytona Beach revitalize and come to where its next steps are. So that's a little bit, I forgot, I get this. So that's a little bit about our backstory.
All right.
Oh, wait, I get to do this part too. So, back in 2020, we're sitting around like most people were at the time, and a friend of mine has an online start your own business class, and we were kind of kicking around the house as one was doing, and my husband here has a myriad of ideas and talents. He's a graphic designer, he creates music, he does so many things, and I was like, oh, we could take this business class and really take it up to the next level. So we started on that journey.
Yep. So it was during COVID, obviously, and Laura tells me about this business class idea. It was kind of a way to focus and try to narrow down what you'd be good at. The whole idea of the class was to use your life experience and try and find a way to apply that. And the very first portion of it was like this deep dive analysis. So of course, you know, as she said, I was all hoping to get into like art or music or something, but when I started evaluating what we had a ton of experience in our life with and what kind of mattered, it boiled down to a kind of more of a darker corner, which I don't mean to talk about it negatively, but essentially I grew up in a custody battle, and my whole life, and my siblings did, and then I swore when we moved on from that would never happen to my kids. And it wasn't really up to me ultimately in the end, because my daughter also grew up in a custody battle nearly her whole life. So once we realized that we had a ton of experience with, especially because we're a blended family, so we also had this blended family and all this history of separation, we realized that that was an important factor that we wanted to try and help other people prevent or get through without having to go through the hardships, because it's one of those subjects where it happens to everybody in one way or another.
Not everybody.
Well, not everybody, let's be fair, it's not 100%, but the idea is that it is such a big thing to go through for the person that's going through it, and it's hard to find support as they're going through that. So how could we try and create a process that would allow people to try and prevent a lot of that hardship that some people are going through alone, or some people are going through that other people don't understand?
So we started backwards. We started at the point of when the custody battle starts, right? You're getting a divorce, it's bad, you're angry. And we realized in doing all of our research that actually there had been somebody who had already discovered that this was happening, and that was Dr. Mark Feinberg. We reached out to him, we looked through his articles, we navigated back, and it turns out that the time to prevent that custody angst and that trauma on the children is before you have the children.
Yep, yeah, that was, he was very reserved and kind of like he'd spent 20 years of his life researching this subject and going into all the different relational situationships between the parents and grandparents and how those different factors affected a child's development and relationship. And that was what it narrowed down to, is ultimately the highest chance of success was those decisions had to be made in love by those people that were involved before there was ever any instance of strife.
So what Dr. Oh, no button, wrong way.
I don't know if we can re-access it.
No. Thank you, sorry
You can
about
tell we
that.
do this all the time.
I was looking for my pointer.
Yeah, you're good.
Is that the right button? Okay, so if you're ever interested, the Family Foundation is what Dr. Mark Feinberg put together. It is $25. It's a class for parents, for brand new parents. It's online. It's absolutely amazing. I just recently found it when we were putting this together. I reached back out to Dr. Mark Feinberg, and he's very excited that we're doing this. So he's got the pre-parenting class to help parents figure out how to be parents together. Even if you're a grandparent, and he doesn't call them parents, I think he calls them co. But anyway, and then in our document, there's a link right here, but I don't think we can get to it. We refine and refer to his studies. So this is how we got to this idea. It really is backed up by 20 years of research.
So, what was the result? So out of these, gosh, we worked on this for 6 months, I think? Yeah, so we spent 6 months developing, trying to go over and analyze every single situation, question, and like things that might come up. What resulted was this 7-step process document that essentially, you can describe it however you want. It's supposed to be a pre-parenting plan. It's good for a lot of situations. It kind of works as like an advanced directive for if you passed away, how you want your kids to be raised. If you were in a separation, you both would have had this document and created and agreed upon it. So that way, if for some reason there's a conflict where you guys can't come to an agreement, you guys can have this document to show what your plan was back when you were making it, when you're on the same page. Or even if it's a document that's also designed to help people that are just getting into the starting stages, and it drives up a lot of questions that you would never think of having children and parenting. Like, it allows you to have those conversations and start talking about things ahead of time. So that way, when you're trying to decide if soccer practice is important or not, you're not both frustrated about it.
Right, yeah. Do you think going to the practice is important? I don't know. Some people really do, and some people really don't. So, is Christmas important to you? Halloween? What are your traditions? And I think it'd be really great to start talking about who's in charge of getting the stockings. Like, are you just putting this all on one person? So it just creates that conversation But in the end, it creates a document that you have that you can refer to in case you did the best you can and it didn't work out. You have a chance to prioritize your children.
Well, and I'd like to emphasize that it is really about the children as well, but it's also protecting both parents. I mean, really, it's a great idea to be able to make those decisions so much ahead of time that when you care about each other, that everyone in the family is looked after for once, if anything changes.
So that was the answer, was before the children.
Yeah. So kind of, I guess we're going to discuss what we want to see this do and where this is going.
So what we have now is a 7-step parenting plan. The first 3 or 4 steps are basically conversation. The 6th step is the big one where you're going through, I think it's right now a 67-page document, and you're supposed to do it in little half-an-hour increments, and then you can have it notarized. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, is we did talk to an attorney. We have talked to legal advice, and so I found out that it's notarized. It is usable. I'm not saying that it's going to be what, it's not a court order, but it is a starting place.
Yes, it definitely can be evaluated if both parties can get to that point, but if you're in front of a judge, they like to see that you guys have a plan or have an intent more than nothing, more than a conflict.
Yep. So I did sign up for the Innovation Challenge a couple months ago, so that's how this kind of got started. And here we are snowballing, talking with you. So we're here to just find out what you guys think and what our next steps could be. I have my pen and paper ready to take notes, so thank you.
And did want to touch note on one last thing. We are open to having this as a business that we make money off of, but we're also open, the real goal of this is to get this in as many people's hands as possible to help them. Whether that needs to be some type of hybrid, we're open to ideas. It's really about the focus and the goal of the product versus a monetary. So, very cool.
This presentation is just the heart of 1MC. An idea, here's some plans, but we want feedback. This is just perfect. This is exactly what 1MC is designed for. So, my first question really is, when you're talking to some people, if they're even thinking of having kids, most people parent the way they saw their parents parent, right? Or their family. And you can tell, and you kind of described, you got a cycle. If you're trying to break a cycle, it's hard to understand that you're in that cycle. You're part of the cycle. So, do you have something that starts targeting that kind of thing?
I guess a good way to answer that is there's a couple factors that I foresee when you go into this, is that you end up with 2 different people as coming together that may have different viewpoints on parenting. I think it's a good point for them to blend. One of the ideas that we had eventually is to possibly offer a service where we help, I guess you'd call, I don't think mediate's the right word, counsel, but just somebody that goes through the process with them. We understand that this document's not going to be sat down and gone over in one sitting. It's going to take many sessions, so we thought having an assistant just to have that touch boundary, that safe third viewpoint.
So how we're targeting people, most of us are products of divorce, and I think that kids nowadays are a little bit, people who are having children nowadays are a little bit more realistic and not quite as shiny-eyed as our grandparents might have been. So talking about a parenting plan in case of divorce is a real concept. They probably went through a custody battle themselves, and they don't want that for our children. So there's a little bit more realism now.
TJ Philly, the Daytona City Lifestyle. I have a small series of questions just because I'm trying to get my head wrapped around a couple of things. The first one is, have you incorporated, and if so, as a for-profit or a non-profit?
We haven't gone either direction yet.
All right, then the second thing is, regardless of which direction you go, how are you going to monetize this?
So,
Oh, no, no.
all right.
Yep, tacos.
So we had a couple ideas, like we were saying. Essentially, we kind of wanted to make just like a print and play document that would be absolutely free. That wasn't the idea, was to charge for that. You're talking about maybe making the link that essentially you could pay just a small amount that would go to like a form fillable PDF type system, so it could be done digitally versus having to be all done by hand. And then obviously the third tier that we kind of played with was, like I was saying, having somebody that was willing to take the time that they pay for to sit down and walk them through the process.
Another idea somebody had was for us to make this a tiered situation, like, well, what would custody look like if you're doing this at 0 to 2? What does it look like once they reach school? So then there'd be different levels of times that they could buy, I guess.
Correct. And another big one that was brought up to us was some type of like gift package type of thing when it comes to grandparents or parents wanting to buy this for their kids. They might have history with the situation, they just kind of want them to be best prepared for theirs.
All right, and then the final question, at least for now, I mean, have time come back to it. I'll reserve my time after I'm done with this. The third one is, you know, I see that you have a Facebook page and you're talking about a helpful community. How are you planning on marketing this going forward? And you know, this kind of also goes back to the business side, and that is, even if you're giving away everything for free, it still costs money to do what you need to do. And to be successful in this, you know, it needs to go out to a broader range of people. So, you know, how you're establishing your business, how you're going to monetize it, and how you're going to market it, all are kind of the core dynamics of getting this thing off the ground.
That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Obviously, we probably need to develop a website. I mean, and then, I don't know.
So when we were traveling around, one of my ideas was that we could stop by every hospital in every town and drop off our pamphlets in their little needle unit area. Obviously, we didn't get to that, but yeah, marketing's going to be, you start small and go big. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say hospitals, anywhere where it's accessible to young parents or young people going into like a marriage situation, that is just having that free document as well, so they know that it's an access point, or at least having like some type of advertising or flyer that takes them to the website, so it's easy access.
It's Diego Handel, Daytona LLC. So I have some recommendations for you. I was a lawyer for many years and did some divorces. Was not my favorite part, but I did do some. So the court system, I think, would be an ideal place for you to reach into the family division, for example, in most courts in Florida. One possible angle would be to talk to the court administrator, and each court system in Florida has one, and offer to make this available, and perhaps at some point make it a requirement before a marriage license is issued that a class be taken. You know, they have some requirements now that you have to do some parenting stuff before they'll grant a divorce. So the courts have recognized that there's a need for collaboration and conciliation. So the court system is one. The other one would be the lawyers, the bar. So The Florida Bar has a section on family law. Those are lawyers who, that's what they do, they practice. The Rouge County Bar has a section of people that do family law. And they're always looking for ideas and things to do. This can be brought up to the bar. And that's just not in Florida, but that's nationwide. The American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers is a national organization. It's a highly respected organization. You know, the American Bar Association in the 50 states have their own bars, and the counties have their own bars, and some cities that are large, like New York, have their own bar. They all have family sections. So I think the lawyers would be interested in this because it would help them do their job better. You would think that maybe they would lose business this way, but that's not the way they look at it. They want educated clients. It makes their job much easier. Same thing with judges. You know, judges don't like people who come unprepared to court. They like to see litigants that are prepared or who know what they're talking about. Otherwise, they spend half their time trying to explain to unrepresented people how it works, and it's a massive waste of their resources and time. So they look for organization. So I think if you reach out to the bar, to the court system, eventually be the legislature, because they will enact the rules that apply, Florida Rules of Family Procedure, and all that. It all ties in together. So I think those are some ways to go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful advice.
Have you thought about a book? With a book, that's a resource that you make available to people that do premarital counseling. They can make that available to their clients, the people that they're counseling. But then you can also use that as a social proof and get paid speaking gigs. You can give seminars that people pay to come to. So you won't make money off the book necessarily, but you will make money because of the book. And so write a field guide to pre-parenting, 30,000, 40,000 words, and you self-publish on Amazon and make that available to people.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys, wonderful presentation. I got to applaud you and thank you because I just went through this myself. Okay. Not my parents, but I feel like my son was just dragged through this. And when it comes to the pain points of what you're talking about, it is something that I try to shield him from everything that I could. And what this does, it takes a lot of the pain, a lot of the explanation here, and with what's being said is absolutely, when you go through, when you're trying to communicate with people that couldn't communicate to start with, to start prior to that and design a plan, what if? It's like insurance. You hope to God you never have to use it, but if you do, because when I had my boy, I never thought, no, divorce wasn't it. I can live through this, and then it was like, no, what it's doing to him, I couldn't live that. So this, I think, is brilliant. I'd love to sit down with you and you've got a lot of brilliant ideas wrapped into this. Great cards laying, but they're not organized. Let's sit down and look, let's fill in the gaps, find out where you're at. I think it's great. I love that you're writing everything down. It's all recorded, so you can be engaged. You can be in here. You can play this back 6 times. Because all this, it's like, I know what it's like being up there. Now it's like you got 40 people on your board of advisors. And this is really great information. I've got your information. We'll definitely connect and sit down and, we'll talk.
Hey guys, I'm Christopher. All right, so this is awesome. This is a tool, right? So this is basically a communication tool, okay? So you're basically taking this, you're aligning physical with mental to project something, a task, a goal at 100%, right? You're taking the disconnect between the parent and the child, and you're using words or platforms to mend those two things together. Ultimately, you're facing the same exact problem here, where you're now having to put yourself or the tool into someone else's hands to get them to understand, right? So you're having to take literally your philosophy and then step back and use that philosophy to get the philosophy into someone's hands. So if you're looking to monetize this, It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Well, you have to have people in order to get them to buy something. So the barrier lies in the communication. There's something that's not working to where your audience is not even hearing or being receptive to you. So Lululemon Athletica had this thing where they created Ocean, which was like their ideal clientele, right? We all know the type. She's gonna be going out to get the gas at the certain station, it doesn't matter what the price is. She's gonna, you know what I mean? There's always that, you know who's gonna be there. So who is your Ocean? Do you know who that is?
Actually, I think I see it with unwed mothers, younger girls and younger boys that got pregnant on accident. I'd like to work with those people because that's where I see a lot of immaturity already, and then this can help them prepare for the inevitable. So that would be the first wave, I guess.
That's great. And then when you sit down and talk to these people, where is that disconnect? What is it? Why do they not understand what the product or service is?
It's kind of like he was saying, the discussion at all. Generally, people, it's like a prenup when you get married. Nobody really wants to have the conversation about separation. So really, one of the biggest challenges we have is how to present the product so it's not so taboo of a conversation to have, because, you know, and just between 100% clarity, and this has nothing to do with religion, but like, I think some of the most people that are instantly put off by the product are Christian married people, because the idea of divorce is so, and so I want to kind of try and find out how to present more than just a divorce product. I want to present it as a planned product. What happens if you both pass away? How do you want your kid to be taken care of? I mean, it's a conversation that's really supposed to be focused on the best interest, not the worst situation.
You need to find a way to shift that perception and take that connotation away from divorce and negative things and present it in a positive way. Here's a couple of places you can go. The public library, you can actually rent out a room for less than $25. All the branches here in Volusia County do it. You can sit there, you're gonna be right there. Hope Place is a homeless shelter. There's a lot of parents that literally stay there for free. That's a great conduit to continue to get your voice out, and it's cheap. If not, they'll probably even let you do it for free. They have a social worker that goes to the library all the time. You can link up with them. I'd love to sit down and talk with you guys as well. I have some credentials and some great networking people that can get this going. This is a great product.
Good morning, Jen Rogers with Just Peachy Clean. On top of the Hope Place, like you just mentioned, there's also Family Renew Community, and that's another one where they bring in women who have to go through specific things before they can transition out, and one of those things is teaching. So I think a parenting plan would probably suit them well. The other thing is, before you can push it too hard, I think you do need to nail down whether you're going to be a for-profit or nonprofit, because that's going to change your trajectory a lot. And then the last thing I would highly recommend is getting in touch with the SBDC. They will sit down with you and help you create a business plan and goals and how to do it, and it's all free. It's out at the UCF branch at the college. You can set up an appointment. There's a million free business resources. Actually prepaid because your taxes paid for it, so may as well use it. But there's so much there that they would be able to help you out with. I mean, specifically sitting down and writing out a clear plan so you guys know where you need to go with that.
Yeah, one of the things that reinforce that, you can ask them all kinds of questions. They have access to tons of resources that would normally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get access to, information, marketing information, and they will get it for free. Just tell them what you're looking for. And I've gone in there before and said, hey, I'm looking for this kind of, how do I market to these people? And a week later, they come back with a whole bunch of marketing information. It's fantastic. And prepaid, like you said.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure if we were there yet to talk to them.
I think you're in the best place to start, because at the beginning is where you need to get your plan in order. It's so much easier to start right than have to go back to fix things.
Awesome. I can really identify with this. My parents have been married 10 times. I remember going to first grade at Holly Hill Elementary, and I was the only kid in the whole school, at least in my class, who was, had divorced parents. So, things have changed, right? But I love, I think there's two different audiences, ones who have children out of wedlock and people who are pre-planning, right? Because I think what you say about before is it. It really is. Like, I've been married once, and my next anniversary will be my 40th. So I did break the cycle, right? And that was intentional before I got married. And so your spouse is actually the most important, far more of a priority than the kids are. I always say the spouse is first, the kids are second, and everyone else is last. And, you know, well, I said God first, spouse second, and kids and everyone else last. But, you know, but I love what you're doing. So I have a question about how you're going to do this. Is this going to be online? Is it going to be in person? You're going to have both?
So what I would like to see would be online, but we're not going to be able to just have online generate itself without being in person first. So I think the book idea is really amazing because it just gives a little bit more credentials and more weight, like this is for real. I'd love to work with Dr. Mark Feinberg more. That, you know, gives more credence to our work. But I don't really want this to be what we talk about all the time. This was really hard for us to dig up. It brings up a lot of feelings, and you're talking with people about their very innermost heartbreak, and that takes a toll. So I do not mind giving it passion work for a few years, but then I would like to have it just, in my perfect world, just let it run itself.
Yeah, be a document. I really think there will be in-person work that has to be started with, but getting the product online and available, as well as probably doing, if we were being part of that counseling process, I'm using the word counseling, I don't think that's the correct word, but that assistance process, it'd probably be telephonically, that would be scheduled through Zoom meetings or through, I understand, when I first touched this subject as well, when it became the realization that this was possibly the project, it was probably the last one I wanted to go towards. But I realized that it was very important. And that's, I don't mind the support. I understand not wanting to be in it all the time, but if we can find ways to have that blend with our life and help other people's lives, I can't see why we wouldn't want to continue through.
I wanted to add something to what was said before. I thought the idea of the book is a very good idea. And that ties in together with what I mentioned before, because if you have a book, you can present it to the lawyers in the court and show them what it is. And with the lawyers, they all have meetings. They have an annual meeting of the Society of Family Lawyers. And get yourself invited to be a speaker at the annual meeting or the quarterly meeting and present to all the lawyers that are present your idea. And you're going to reach a lot of people that way through the book and through speaking at the conferences. And then you can monetize it in a lot of different ways, obviously. You can be a speaker, you can be a consultant, you can actually set up a program for the various, so same thing with the therapists, you know, the American Psychological Association, social workers and therapists. They could incorporate a lot of this in their practice. And also religious organizations, a lot of them do pre-marriage counseling. I think the Catholic Church does, and some other synagogues and churches do the same thing. They'd be interested in adding to what they already have some more tools to advise and prepare couples for marriage.
Thank you.
Sounds like you're almost interested more in producing the resource to provide to the professionals that are involved in this. If you don't want to be involved in the emotional day-to-day, you know, personally coaching and counseling, then producing the resource the tools to give to the professionals who do that. Maybe that's where you want to be.
I think the number one thing that you need to think about as you leave here today is come up with what your definition of success is. All right? Is it reaching 100 families in East Volusia County? Is it doing something that spans Florida? Is it doing something that spans America? Is it doing something that spans the world? And let that guide you in figuring out whether you're going to be a for-profit or non-profit, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that kind of ties into that is, and you just brought this up, there are hard decisions that happen in relationships. And how many people in this room had a prenup before they ever got married? And the answer is very few. This is even beyond a prenup. I mean, you're talking about something that's going to get very emotional for people, and people avoid conflict. And so your entire, whether you're creating a resource, whether this becomes a business, regardless of what you're doing going forward, you need to take that into consideration as to how successful this will ultimately end up being. What are you going to do to compel people to have that tough conversation even before they've had their kids? And you talk about unwed mothers, right? Guess what? It's a little bit too late for them to have that conversation with the father.
There'll probably be a second.
Yeah, but and that one may still be unwed. How do you reach the people where they are when they need to talk to you, when they need to go through and do the plan, and figure out how you're going to get in front of those people and then compel them to have these tough conversations in the timely fashion?
And I completely agree with you. I would say that is, as I was touching on earlier, that is the biggest hurdle with this product. Nobody wants to have this conversation. How do we make it something that will be kind enough to approach and tangible enough to approach that somebody is going to take the time to do it?
Hi guys, he's the fractional unit marketing. So anybody that starts a business that's for the benefit of society, I always say tip my hat because we need more of those. So I'm gonna be as honest as I can about what you're doing here. I'm very confused, and I think that what's happening is that one of the challenges that you sometimes have in a business is trying to market to everybody. And if you try to market to everybody, the old saying goes, you sell to nobody. And what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling when you're presenting is that there are really, I could segment this into two distinct audiences. There's the, for your customers. The beneficiary of your product is not the customer. The beneficiary of your product is society and the children, but the person that buys your product is the parents or maybe even the churches, organizations, or whatever that fills your product. So there's two, I draw a line down the middle. There is the momentum before you have a child, which is people are getting married. They're very positive. They want to do something good. They're motivated by positive things, and I may make a choice to have your product. I think choice after a divorce or the things that come afterwards, I feel that's going to be something that's going to need an element of compulsion, either from a state or a court or something else. And they're two very distinct markets. And the latter is, like you say, coming through courts and stuff that somebody says, hey, you've got to do, like when I get caught for speeding, I've got to do an online course, I pay $100 and I've got to do it because I don't get points. I wouldn't go do that course before I ever get a ticket because I don't think I'm ever, you see what I mean? And so what I would suggest to you is to get a blank piece of paper before you decide whether you're a non-profit, a profit, or half a profit, and you're going to go here and do this and do that. I would get a blank piece of paper and I would segment your audience. And this is how I would suggest you do it. Start with 3 sentences. What is the problem? What is your solution to the problem? And what is the benefit of people taking your solution? And if you can't distill everything in your business down to those 3 sentences, you'll then have to segment your audiences and you can do the same exercise for each individual segment. At that time, you may have to decide where you enter the market, Is it going to be here? So think like a hunter, not a farmer. Go after a particular segment of the market that's the one that you want to go after, the one trying to be all things to all people. There's a great resource online. I'll give you a note for it now. Just type into YouTube, Story Branding by Donald Miller. And there's a whiteboard video that's 9 minutes long, and I've watched it 10,000 times because it's so good and will help you understand what it is you're trying to do. Thanks.
Very good. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Right here.
Good morning, Mark Goodson, Ormond Beach Chamber. This topic is near and dear to my heart for a variety of reasons, but I must say that having listened to everything that you've had to say, it seems like a bit of a tough sell. All right, so I'm going to be honest as well, but I'm going to offer some things in line with what's already been said in a little bit of a different way. I think in the beginning, to get two parents even of sound mind that are pragmatic to agree to a child plan or a kind of a prenup, if you will, in the early stages of a relationship is just tough, right? It's just tough. And you're not even really talking about necessarily monetizing it yet. You're not quite sure where you're at with it. And I get all of that. I can appreciate the notion of a book. I think that makes a lot of good sense given what I hear so far. One thing is you cite Dr. Feynman's research, or Feinberg's research. He's the doc that's been doing this for however many years, and you're going to expound upon what he's done, presumably, and wrap around. So unless you're going to do the research, you can't take his, but you can certainly complement that in a number of ways. So there's two parts to what I'm saying. One, I think it's a tough sell up front, so you have to win the hearts and minds of those people who might be interested in this. I'm going to offer a way to do that via book that might garner the hearts and minds of people at large. And I would say, think about structuring the book with anecdotal evidence, unless you're going to provide scientific evidence, about a variety of stories about adult children that have been impacted by growing up in an environment where they've been adversely affected by parents that were not good co-parents. And create that feel-good story such that when people are researching how can I be a good parent, or they personally experience what you've experienced and what I've experienced and what so many people have experienced, capture people that way and then funnel them into a process, an idea about having that conversation early on. Because honestly, as it was said, if there's not a legal agreement, in spite of the fact that pragmatists might come together in the beginning and agree to something as a plan, when money and children are involved later, that all goes out the window if there are no legal teeth in it. So those would be my thoughts.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Hey there. So on the marketing piece, I wanted to see if you guys had thought of going to OBGYNs and kind of getting it when women find out that they're pregnant. Because we received the packet as a bunch of different courses and classes and things you can do for education and parental planning. So have you looked into that at all?
I have not, but that is exactly right. So we've talked a little bit about marriage, but it's actually when you're pregnant that's when people are the most fluid with their roles and responsibilities in the household. That's when that mind opens up a little bit more. Your endorphins are rolling, it's neuroscience. So that is when to grab the families.
We didn't quite touch on it, but that was the biggest point in Feinberg's research, was that was the key moment when somebody knows they're about to have a baby or finds out they are pregnant and going that direction. That is the most open moment that people are willing to change and adjust. So that is kind of the key target moment.
That's
I'd say that it has opportunities at different segments, but like that is
That's
that is like the prime spot out of 20 years of research.
One more here.
Hi, everybody. Sharon with the Daytona Beach Convention and Visitors Bureau. Nice to see you, and thank you for your efforts and your mission. I think it's needed out there. My thought was about the legality of it. You had mentioned that this is a document that could be notarized, might not be a legally binding. Can you clarify that a little bit? And because the reason I ask is that sometimes that legally binding thing can work against you. For example, you are young, you're going to raise a family, you come up with this terrific plan, but then somebody in that relationship changes, and therefore that plan should change, because that maybe that person that changed shouldn't be responsible for children. How legally binding would this become for you?
Our understanding is that it's a first step. So you can always go back to the court and say, look, yep, this is what we decided, 10 years ago, but this person's changed, and this is not how it should be. So the court always has final say.
Correct, and that's why we've kind of adjusted the scope of it a little bit to possibly encompass different periods of the child's life, so that if it hit a certain point, situations were extraneous enough that it could be adjusted, that sale. But I mean, really the intent of it is to get people talking about it, to spread knowledge about it, and once those two parents get that document notarized, if it comes to a courtroom, it shows the judge that they were on the same page at least about these subjects. It creates a starting point. Since I grew up in custodial, one of the biggest things my dad ever told me was that you can have somebody that has completely the best intention, you can have somebody with the worst intention when they walk into a courtroom. The judge doesn't know either of you. So both of you gain or lose 50% credibility right away. And at least this gives the judge an idea of where you wanted things to go. So.
Tom's gonna wrap it up.
Hey guys, ooh, that's loud. Sorry about that. So I just want to say, fantastic presentation, because what it is brought out one of the best responses I've ever seen in 1 Million Cups with the audience. Thank you for what you guys have done with giving feedback, and that's exactly what this is all about. On a personal note, my two parents are still together. My current wife's parents are still together. But my current wife's spouse was a separated family, and my first spouse had a separated family. Now, fortunately, my ex-wife and I get along fantastic because we do have a 1-year-old, and that did blend the family. This is real, and this was 30 years ago, and now I'll be a grandparent in December with that 30-year-old, 31-year-old. So this is fantastic information for her husband and her moving forward over the next 6 months, getting ready to have a child. So locally, how do you help? There is an organization called One Voice for Volusia, and it gives organizations just like you're getting ready to create to get their word out. And I would certainly look into that and start being a part of that, because it's going to put you around another 100 organizations trying to support young people going through, whether it be substance abuse or divorce or surviving that parent separation. So please look into that. It's a great resource. You guys did a fantastic job giving some great advice to this young couple. So congratulations to you all for doing that.
Great job, everybody. If you got any more comments, ideas, or you just want to talk, they'll be here for a few more minutes. Thank you guys for coming out. It was fantastic. Great job. Hey, we're going to bring up the lights. We are here every Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock, along with all the other 1 Million Cups organizations around the country. So we have great presentations like this. So come on up to the front. We'll do the family photo here. We'll bring up the lights, and we'll see you.